A new ranking has the top 50 free agents listed and where their best fits are. How many of them have the St. Louis Cardinals written next to their names? Find out today on Locked On Cardinals.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily St. Louis Cardinals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Cardinals fans. I'm JD Hafron, a former national radio sports anchor, born and raised in St. Louis and a lifetime Cardinals fan, and I'm your host for Locked On Cardinals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. A big thank you to our everydayers for coming out each and every single day to be here with us throughout the season, and of course now in the offseason. For those of you who are new to the program, welcome in. We do hope you enjoy all of the Cardinals content that we give you. This is a show that serves Cardinal Nation and gives you all the info about the birds on the bat. Today's episode brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. On today's episode, we're going to talk a little bit about the Arizona Fall League. One of the Cardinals pitchers was recognized for his excellence. He's had an excellent start this fall, so we'll get to the info on that. But the main focus today is going to be about free agents. Many fans believe that the Cardinals, who hardly spent any money in free agency this past season, are going to keep it tight once again this year. They don't think that they're going to spend a lot. Like, if you go through the comment section, you'll see people like, they're not going to spend a dime. The DeWitts are being cheap, and that's not going to happen. And you have every reason to think that, considering, how they went after things this past offseason, and the fact that their focus and their resources have been going into developing players instead, right? Instead of buying free agents, they want to build their own stars, which is the smarter way to go about it, because you're not going to be able to afford the big stars because all the major market teams are going to pick them and they're going to get taken away, and you're never going to compete with them that way. Their idea is to, give younger players a chance to perform instead of relying on veterans this past year. The possible work stoppage in 2027 is also on the minds of a lot of fans as well, which is completely understandable. I'm in the same boat. I feel like part of this is because of what 2027 might have in store. That, the idea of like, well, I don't want to go buy an expensive free agent and then pay him while we're not doing anything. I don't want to get under that. And maybe things change and there are new rules that are implemented. I mean, things could go very differently in 2027 if we have a work stoppage, and some things might have to change. But if we're just attacking this as what can we do for 2026, there are some things that can be done. And Chaim Bloom has said on multiple occasions that he believes that ownership will spend. He's never been told they won't. If they decide to find some guys that truly they want to spend their money on and think are going to be a good fit for what the Cardinals are trying to do. They're not just going to go out on some random spending spree like, some of these major markets teams will this year. A lot of experts believe that the Mets are just going to come out and just throw money at everything and just buy everybody and try to compete with the Dodgers that way. They're going to try to fix things with their bank account and not their brains, really, is what they're going to try to do. Cardinals are going to operate that way. We know that. But they've got some holes to fill on this roster, and signing a couple of free agents to fill those spots is something we'll discuss today. And it makes sense, and again, this is not going out and buying 5 and 6 dudes and, revamping this whole thing. It's just plugging in certain spots that you could use a solid free agent in. And that's kind of how you want it to be. You want to develop your own talent, build your own stars, and then you massage the roster, if you will, with free agents from the outside. You don't want to have to rely on buying free agents to make your team, to find your star player. You want to have those guys in house already. So Jim Bowden at The Athletic, former GM, you know who he is, released his top 50 free agents. And I've got the article linked in the description and in the show notes, so I want you to go check it out for yourself. But he does this each year, and he adds some commentary to each player, talks about the contract that he thinks they're going to get and which teams are the best fits. Now, it seemed like the Mets is an easy one for him. He's basically got them down for almost every top free agent in the top 50. Like, I think all of the top 10, he's got the Mets on there. And it's easy to put major market teams in there. Mets, Yankees, Phillies, Dodgers, Red Sox, Astros, Cubs. They're all in there because, these teams have the funds to get almost anyone they want, and some of them are a little more shy. Like the Cubs haven't been spending crazy money the way they probably could or should. But who does he think like the mid-market, small market teams will be looking at? That's the interesting stuff to me. How will the Cardinals, if they do choose to spend, attack things this year? In years past, you'd see the Cardinals probably listed around 7 or 8 of these guys on the list. Not usually the top of the market names, but sprinkled in the middle and the back end there. And it's not really that much different this year. He's got them as a best fit team for 4 of the 50 free agents listed here. He does not have them among the top 10 free agents, which goes Kyle Tucker, Kyle Schwarber, back-to-back Kyles. How about that? Pete Alonso, Framber Valdez, Bo Bichette, Alex Bregman, Ranger Suarez, Dylan Cease, Japanese pitcher Tatsuya Aime, I think is how it's pronounced. Tatsuya Aime is how it's pronounced. I don't know. I put a Sue in there for some reason. Tatsuya Aime, and then Cody Bellinger. Those are your top 10. And I don't think the Cardinals not being linked to any of them is really a shocker. A lot of those guys are going to command crazy money, and the Cardinals are going to do that. All right. So let's start with the highest ranked free agent that he does have them linked to. And that's at number 11. So it's not like it's that far down the list, but it's at number 11. And that's where he's got linked with, that's right, Diamondbacks pitcher and former Cardinals farmhand, Zac Gallen. And when I made my list of starting pitchers that I thought the Cardinals would look at, I don't know, it was like a week or 2 ago, Gallen was at the top of my list as well for the Cardinals. But here's what Jim Bowden had to say about him. Just 2 years ago, Gallen was the starting pitcher for the NL in the All-Star game and finished in the top 10 in the Cy Young Award voting for the 3rd time in 4 years. He followed that up last year by going 14-6 with a 3.65 ERA and was expected to be one of the top free agent starters in this year's class. However, he had a down year, going 13-15 with a 4.83 ERA, a 4.51 FIP over 33 starts. For those of you who don't know what FIP is, because not everybody knows every single term that they use these days because there's a billion of them, so I get it. FIP it stands for fielding independent pitching. And basically that evaluates a pitcher based on things that they can control. So your strikeouts, your walks, your hit by pitches, your home runs. So 4.51 FIP, not great, Bob. Bowden continues saying his rate of strikeouts per 9 innings was the lowest of his career at 8.2, down from 9.5 the previous year. He just turned 30, but over the past 2 seasons, he hasn't been the same pitcher he was at his peak. Will teams see a pitcher who can compete for Cy Youngs again, or one who is more of a mid-rotation starter like he was the last 2 years? He then goes into what it might cost to get Gallen. Salary comps, he goes with Seth Lugo, who had that 2-year $46 million with the Royals, Sonny Gray, 3 years $75 with the Cardinals, Nathan Eovaldi, 3 years $75 with the Rangers, and then Yusei Kikuchi, 3 years $66.38 Angels, I believe is where Kikuchi is. So when you look at that, all of that sounds great, right? That's in the Cardinals ballpark. If he was willing to sign a 2 to 3 year deal worth, $75 million, I feel like the Cardinals will be fine with that. But then he lists the contract prediction, and he has got Zac Gallen signing a 5-year, $135 million deal at $27 million per. And that is far longer than he's got, than the other names that he brings up there in the salary comparisons. Like we're talking 2, 3, 3, 3, and then 5, 135 at $27 million per. It's not the $27 million per that you kind of go, what? You don't bat an eye at that, but you bat an eye at 5 years at $135 million. And I believe that the reason it might get to that point is just because how many teams will be interested in him. The teams that he lists as bet fits, there's a bunch. He's got the Orioles, the Red Sox, the Tigers, Astros, Padres, Giants, Braves, Mets, Cubs, and Cardinals. That's a lot of competition. And that shouldn't come as a surprise. Everybody wants more pitching. It's something you just can't get enough of, which is why the Cardinals are finally putting such a focus on it in their own organization and player development. Does 5 years sound good for a 30-year-old pitcher coming off of his worst year in the big leagues? No, it does not. Of course not. But that's the price of business these days. And it's why you want to build your own pitchers and star players in your own system. You don't want to have to pay 5 years and $135 million for a 30-year-old who has had a bad year, is back-to-back years where things have declined a little bit. You don't want to be in that position. Now, if we're going to spend some money, I would spend it on a guy like Gallen. I think he would be an excellent addition. I think his numbers aren't as bad as they seem. I think there's plenty of juice left in the tank there. I think he could be solid. And if you added him to a rotation and still had Sonny Gray, which everybody still expects that he will likely be traded. There's also a list on The Athletic about the top 10 trade candidates, and Sonny Gray was like number 7, I think. So, but if you had, say, Sonny and Zac Gallen and then Liberatore and then McGreevy, now we're kind of talking, right? Like, that doesn't sound too crappy, does it? Now, if they deal Sonny Gray, it would open up more money that they could spend on somebody like Zac Gallen, but then you're kind of right back where you were with just 3 legitimate starters. I know there's other names that are being kicked around to fill out the rotation for the Cardinals, but you got 3 really that you trust right now. So adding somebody like Gallen and making it 4, I think that would be wonderful. But a lot of people are going to be after him because a lot of people are in the same boat where they're like, yeah, I don't think Zac Gallen is as bad as this past year was. And they're going to want to talk to him as well. So it kind of depends on where he wants to be. But I like that Bowden thinks that the Cardinals are somebody who will talk to him. And maybe he'd be interested in coming to St. Louis and finally pitching for the Cardinals. Never did get up to the big league level with us when he was in our farm system before getting traded away for Marcell Ozuna. All right, so Bowden sticks with pitching for the Cardinals for all 4 of these spots. So moving forward, we got 3 more players. All 3 of them are relievers, by the way. One of them has already been in the organization before and is a former first-round pick. We'll talk about them next, coming up on Locked On Cardinals. The NBA is back, and there is no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or, you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Bro, did you watch what happened on Sunday? Reeves for the Lakers went off on Sunday. The Lakers don't have LeBron or Luka Doncic right now. He's got a finger injury. I think he's got an ankle thing that's going on too. Obviously, LeBron's out for a little while as well. And it was Austin Reeves lighting up the scoreboard. So if you jumped on his hot hand and ended up running with him, then you probably scored pretty big on Sunday. You can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at bigger payouts. It just keeps everything more exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. If you enjoy daily Cardinals content, you can follow the podcast on X at @LO_Cardinals. We're on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram at Locked On Cardinals. After having the Cardinals as a fit for Zac Gallen at number 11, along with what looked like half the league, we slide all the way down to his number 34 free agent before we see the Cardinals listed here again. He does not have them listed under any position players, which doesn't really come as a shock either. Cardinals are kind of full. They got guys they want to see play every day. Trading Arenado, Wilson Contreras probably staying. I don't foresee anything happening there ever. You got Lars Newbar out now with the heel issues, but there's still plenty of guys that they have in their system that they would like to see those guys step up and become players instead of going out and spending money. Maybe some backup guys. Maybe that would be something they'd look into. But we're talking about the top 50 free agents here. So most of them, I only want 1 or 2 maybe were considered like role players that he had listed, but he doesn't have the Cardinals linked to any of them. But he does have them listed for the number 34 free agent, and that would be right-handed pitcher Brad Keller, who was with the Cubs this past season. So here's what he had to say about Keller. After a career spent mostly in the rotation with Kansas City, Keller made 14 of his 16 appearances in 2024 out of the bullpen, splitting the season between the White Sox and Red Sox. This year, he was in the bullpen full-time after joining the Cubs. He embraced the role, appearing in 68 games and posting an impressive 2.94 FIP while being an integral part of the Cubs' bullpen success. He set himself up for a bright future as a high-leverage reliever. The best fits as far as teams for Mr. Keller. He's got the Cubs, Dodgers, Mets, Braves, Phillies, Tigers, Astros. So all these huge markets. And then he's got the Cardinals. Yay. He lists several relievers as salary comps, and his contract prediction is 2 years and $15 million. Money-wise, this makes perfect sense. If you believe in what Brad Keller did this past year, and you look at his baseball savant page, you like what you see, that type of money, certainly in the Cardinals spending range. We know that having a deep bullpen can have a massive impact on your season. If there's one thing the Cardinals have been able to do in recent seasons very, very well is build bullpens. They've had a strong bullpen the last couple of years, and it's worked out. This year they were able to trade away from it to get more prospects, and the bullpen was still pretty good even after they made those deals. They've done a good job being able to put those together. And if the Cardinals want to move Kyle Leahy to the rotation, which seems to be what they want to do. Like if they had a wish list of things to work out in their favor, Kyle Leahy becoming a productive and trustworthy starter is probably right up there at the top of the list of things that they hope happens in 2026. Because that way they don't have to go spend money on another starter. And they could, if they wanted to get just one, that would fill out your rotation as you wait for other prospects to make their way up and get healthier. That was another thing, is that some of the guys that I'm sure they were hoping would be around in 2026 got injured last year. So don't have them available. But if Kyle Leahy steps in, then that's a big spot in the bullpen, though, that opens up. And since you're not spending money on a starter because you moved Leahy up, that means you can spend more money on the bullpen, right? And you can spend it on somebody like Keller, who was 4-2 with a 2.07 ERA, 3 saves in 68 games. Would be a perfect match for that spot that Leahy held down in the bullpen. Again, the baseball savant page is dripping in red for Mr. Keller, so there's not much to not like about what he offers. Thing is, though, when you hear these other teams, he's already been in Chicago, clearly enjoyed it there. They won. They went to the playoffs. Staying with Chicago makes a lot of sense. But then you got Dodgers. They needed a bullpen help. Their bullpen sucked this year. The Mets will buy everybody. The Braves, huge market. Phillies, tons of money. Tigers, Detroit's a huge market. Astros, huge market. Would you choose the Cardinals over those guys if they all came calling? How do you win them over to bring them to St. Louis? That's going to be the tough part. The next guy that they list would also be a very good fit. And this is a guy that Cardinal fans should be very much familiar with, and that's former first-round pick Luke Weaver, who Bowden has listed at 36. I always want to call him Bowden because it's spelled like Bobby Bowden, but he pronounces it Bowden. So forgive me if I do that on multiple occasions. But anyway, Luke Weaver, Cardinals first-round pick back in 2014 out of Florida State. He was number 27 overall, same draft where they selected Jack Flaherty just a few selections later at number 34. Weaver made it to the big leagues with the Cardinals, but ended up being part of that Paul Goldschmidt deal in 2018. Then he bounced around a little bit. He got traded from Arizona to the Royals, then from Kansas City to the Mariners, who selected him off of waivers from KC. Then he went to the Reds in free agency. They released him. Then he signed back with Seattle before the Yankees took him off Seattle's roster via waivers. He was then a free agent again in 2023, but re-signed with the Yankees. And now, here we are in present day. Now, here's what Bowden said about him. Weaver was one of the best high-leverage relievers in 2024 for the Yankees, and he had a dominant first half of the season this year, posting a 2.91 ERA. It was a different story in the second half when he posted a 4.40 ERA and there was speculation that he was tipping his pitches. This winter, teams will have to decide whether Weaver's second half issues are fixable and if he can be the pitcher he was in the first half. The best team fits listed for Luke Weaver: Yankees again, then the Braves, and then the Giants. And then it simmers down a little bit. Then he's got the Athletics, he's got the Angels, the Orioles, and the Cardinals. Contract prediction, 2 years, $20 million. Again, money-wise, it makes sense. It really does. Weaver hasn't started a game since 2023. Would the Cardinals consider having him in a Steven Matz type of role where he can be stretched out a little bit? Or is he strictly a one-inning guy now? I wonder if that would appeal to him at all. He was not as good as Keller. But his chase, his whip, his K rates, those were all top tier. He was excellent in those aspects. His expected ERA was awesome as well. So there's a lot to work with. And we know here in St. Louis when it comes to like tipping pitches, like we've heard that before happen to guys. And, you know, we dealt with it with Miles Michaelis this year, where there was like, he was getting shelled and everybody's like, what happened? And they figured out that maybe he was tipping his pitches a little bit. And then he rattled off like 3 or 4 excellent starts in a row. So tipping pitches is a real thing. And if that's what was going on with Weaver, obviously that's something that can be fixed. But both he and Keller make a lot of sense for the Cardinals. If you're going to spend a little extra dough on a bullpen arm, those are 2 very capable guys that you would, I'm sure, would enjoy having there. I've been impressed by Luke Weaver over the years, and I know again, second half was a little bit of a different issue, but like the velocity and everything, like I was like, wow. So now you're starting to see why he was a first-round pick. You're starting to see a lot of life in that arm. So that's good. That's good. So I like both of those guys. Make a lot of sense. One more relief pitcher on the list where the Cardinals are listed as a good fit. The guy's got 90 saves over his last 3 seasons. So obviously that's going to be appealing. I'll tell you who he is next on Locked On Cardinals. NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium, surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle. Between the queues, the login screens, and prices jumping at checkout, it is very, very frustrating. It's why I trust Game Time. They're my go-to every single time, anytime I want tickets to anything that I'm going to do, whether it's a sporting event, whether it's a comedy show, whether it's a concert. First place I go, Game Time. Fast, easy, backed by the Game Time guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all these fees are included. The price you see is the price you pay. The app makes it super simple. You'll get to see the exact view from the seat that you're going to be sitting in before you even buy it, even if you even sit in the seats anymore, which doesn't really happen very often. Baseball games, yes. Football games, no. NHL, yes. Concerts, no. Nobody's sitting down. Zone deals, too. You pick the section. Game Time picks the seats. You get to save big that way, too. Faster, cheaper, less stressful than any other way you can buy tickets. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. For your second listen, check out Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night until the World Series champion is crowned. You'll get local analysis. But on a national scale, you can find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. The Cardinals do not have a typical closer right now. And if they wanted to find one, there are a few of them out there on the free agent market this year. And there are a few that I think would be good fits. But there's only one that Bowden has them as a fit for, and that's former Nationals closer Kyle Finnegan, who he's got ranked at number 45. So here's what he's got to say about Finnegan. Was a free agent last winter after saving 88 games in his first 5 seasons in the majors with the Nationals, but was disappointed when the best offer came late, a 1-year, $5.38 million deal from Washington. He lived up to that contract and more before being traded to the Tigers, which led to his first postseason opportunity. He saved 24 games during the regular season between the Tigers and Nationals and was at his best with Detroit down the stretch with a 1.50 ERA in 16 appearances. Best team fits. much more reasonable for the Cardinals here. He's got the Tigers listed, which makes sense since they had him. And then he's got the Marlins, the Rays, and then the Cardinals. Contract prediction, 1 year, $6.25 million. Another obvious fit when it comes to how much money you're spending. Similar to Phil Maton this past year, has been a solid performer, but not a star, which is a little strange despite the 90 saves in the last 3 seasons. We know that the saves get a lot of attention. So I was shocked that Finnegan didn't get more offers during the last offseason. I was a little surprised. I thought it was something that the Cardinals would look into anyway. I thought that would have been a good addition. They waited and got Phil Maton instead. He's not a huge strikeout guy. He does get strikeouts. Detroit, when he was with Detroit this year, he was actually amazing. He had an 11 strikeouts per 9 average, which was by far the highest in his career. Was only in the low 7s when he was with Washington earlier in the year. But he's still averaging 96.3 on the fastball. He's got a splitter and a slider. Ground ball percentage, which we know the Cardinals love their ground balls. Keep the ball in the ballpark, put it on the ground so that our defenders can take care of it. That was very strong, 82nd percentile on Baseball Savant. So that's plus. The Cardinals have JoJo, Swanson, and O'Brien as closer candidates. But, bringing in somebody who's got some experience as a closer, it's not going to hurt you. And his 1 year, 6.25 that's not going to break you. That's peanuts. Why wouldn't you take a chance on that? And then if things work out, you flip them at the trade deadline, just kind of like you did Phil Maton. Unless you're winning, and then you don't do that, obviously. Another obvious fit. It makes a lot of sense. They don't have a real closer right now. I know JoJo filled that role in pretty good at the end of the year, but you don't want him to you want to have him for the lefties because they don't have a lot of other left-handed relievers. Helsley filled that role in recent years, also a free agent this offseason, and I'd be surprised if the Cardinals didn't talk with him about coming back to the team on a friendly deal to see if he can kind of resurrect what he's worth, because it all went to hell after he went to the Mets. Another guy that people thought was tipping pitches, and that was the problem because the velo was still there, but people just hit the piss out of his fastball last year. So it feels like a very Cardinal thing to do to hit up Helsley again and be like, what do you think? What about a 1 year deal with a player option or something like that? What do you think? And Bowden has him listed at number 37 in his top 50, but he's got the best fits as the Pirates, the A's, Tigers, Giants, and Rays. I don't know how the Cardinals are not included in that. That seems like their area that they're going to be shopping in. He also doesn't have the Cardinals linked to Devin Williams either. I found that a little surprising, although that seems like a very Cardinal move to bring in the St. Louis native, right? Like, he's from St. Louis. Why wouldn't you want to bring him home? Had a rough year in New York, in a big city, after doing so well with Milwaukee. Let you come back home. We'll get you into a smaller market, not as much pressure. He's got the Brewers, the Braves, the Reds, the Tigers, Rangers, and Giants as the best fits for Devin Williams. I have no idea why the Cardinals wouldn't be listed there. That makes no sense to me. I think the Cardinals could benefit from another left-handed reliever to go with Romero and King. I think they should try to get one. Drew Pomeranz is out there. Was with the Cubs this year, but he was the only one listed in the top 50 as far as like left-handed relievers. So obviously there's not many out there then. So that's going to be difficult because people are going to want that. Other former Cardinals on his list included Jose Quintana at 41, Jack Flaherty at 43, Paul Goldschmidt at number 49. He did not have the Cardinals linked to any of them. What are your thoughts on the 4 guys that he does have the Cardinals linked to? Do you like them? All 4 of them make sense. There's no argument there. They make sense. As I said, there are others in here that I think the Cardinals should also look at, that I think, even starters, outside of Zac Gallen, I'd be calling Shane Bieber. He's got him at number 16, Chris Bassett at number 25, Zach Littell at number 32, Nick Martinez at number 39. I would check in on these guys and just see if there's any interest in coming to St. Louis. Bieber will probably be too expensive after what we've seen in the playoffs so far, but I think the other ones could be legitimate targets for sure. So there are more that I think the Cardinals should be linked to. But I'm not Jim Bowden. It's his list. But let me know what you guys think about his list and what you think about his thoughts about what the Cardinals could do. Real quick before we wrap up, shout out to the Cardinals pitching prospect, Darlin Saladin. I don't want to screw up his name, but I think that's how he says it. Saladin? I think that's how he says it. Who's having a really good time in the Arizona Fall League. That's the point. Only 4 qualified Fall League pitchers remain unscored upon. Saladin, the 22-year-old, one of them, punched out 6 across 3 innings of scoreless long relief for Glendale, struck out the side in his first full inning, and then got the whiff of Rockies' top hitting prospect, Charlie Condon, who was a big-time player in college. He has logged, so far, 7 scoreless innings this fall, striking out 10. 22 years old. All right. All right. Here's a picture of him when he was with the Peoria Chiefs this year. So that's another name to kind of keep in the back of your mind as the Cardinals try to find people to take over spots in the bullpen. I mean, we're not talking about an 18-year-old kid. He's 22. Maybe he's a name. I would rather see him than Chris Roycroft next year. I'll tell you that much. Anyway, keep it up. Keep it up, darling. All right. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. If you haven't already, give us a follow on X at @LO_Cardinals and at JD Sports Radio, TikTok and Instagram at Locked On Cardinals. Like, subscribe on YouTube. Help our channel and our love for the Cardinals grow. Almost at 13,000 subscribers. Would love to get there this week. If you enjoy daily Cardinals content, please like, subscribe. It really, really helps the channel. You have no idea how big it is. Get harped at by the bosses. More. So help me. Help you get more Cardinals content. You're the best fans of baseball for a reason. I'll see you next time on Locked On Cardinals.